The trip down to Southern Florida coming up this weekend for the New York Red Bulls. Ken, appreciate you hopping on, giving us a couple of minutes. These teams have seen some good games, and quite honestly, go back to last year, the game in Fort Lauderdale, not great for the New York Red Bulls. So I'm sure number one, they're hoping to atone for that. But let's start with your team, who I think in some ways is probably smarting a little bit heading into the game on Saturday based on what took place in CONCACAF a night ago.
Yeah, man, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And thanks for letting me jump on here. Yeah, that was a drubbing, and I think outside of focusing on Inter Miami for a second, I think it's abundantly clear. There's no doubt now the best team in MLS and maybe the best team on the continent right now is Vancouver. I did not think that was the case going into leg one. I believe that to be the case now coming out of the second leg of that semifinal. For Inter Miami, listen, this is a side that has heavy expectations. They have missed out on one trophy. They have a collection of others they can chase. But the fact of the matter is, right now, not only is this a group that gave up a 2-goal lead at home to FC Dallas last time they were in MLS play, but then Vancouver came in and really sort of smacked them around. So to say they're smarting, I think is pretty accurate.
You look at it, and for these teams, Vancouver to me is a little bit of the exception to the rule. Having seen Red Bull go through it a couple times, making runs in CONCACAF when it was called the Champions League. Miami, their regular season so far in MLS hasn't been bad, right? They've played 9 games. They only have the one loss now, albeit is the one game you're referring to last time out. But so many teams kind of tiptoe through the first part of the season as they continue to advance in Champions Cup. And I'd have to think for Miami, the fact that they are not playing in the final is going to weigh heavy on them because of the way, in some regards, even with success in the regular season through 9 games, it was pretty clear they were out to win this tournament.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And even despite that, Lionel Messi had 6 straight matches where he played the full 90 in every match, all competitions. And so not only did a fit and in form Messi, not only did that help from a CONCACAF Champions Cup perspective, obviously, but it allowed them to navigate through the MLS campaign as well and get double results while they were mixing and matching personnel and starting 11s. There was one constant, and that happened to be Lionel Messi. So from that perspective, it's obviously extremely disappointing, and it's back to the drawing board. And to be quite honest, Matt, the most lacking feature of this Inter Miami side, even before they were the final unbeaten in MLS play to go down, was that the attack has really struggled. The buildup is there, the possession is there, but when it's time for quality outside of number 10, that's been a problem. And when you have Luis Suarez, who's now gone 10 straight without a goal, you're starting to need to reach a little bit to figure out who can help support Lionel Messi.
Ken, I think that's a great point, and I'll flip it on the other side because the person who's not watching Miami every game through training, someone who pays attention but has another team to broadcast, most people would point to the idea of, well, the defense is still not great. And to be fair, no, you give up 4 against FC Dallas. That's not great. You get beat up by Vancouver over 2 legs. That's not great. But take the 4 goals out against FC Dallas over the course of the weekend. Prior to that, Miami in the back line had only given up 6 goals in 8 games. So which is it? Is it your point of, hey, the offense isn't clicking, or is it the defense, which was the conversation all during the course of the offseason? Defensively, we need to be better. You bring in new pieces, new goalkeeper, new everything. Which one is the reason for the, I'll say, the recent struggles, throwing the 3 games, 2 against Vancouver, 1 against Dallas?
Yeah, so there was a lot of focus after last season about how the defense needed to improve. But if you go back to what Inter Miami conceded total last year in MLS play, they were top 6 in the league in goals conceded. However, what inflated that were really poorly timed concessions, both in the Leagues Cup, the meltdown against Columbus in the second half, and then obviously what we saw against Atlanta United in the opening round of the postseason. Now, part of the reason Javier Mascherano was brought in is because there still was a need, despite the lack of concessions, to have some better form, some better shape along the back line. And that largely has been there. And you mentioned prior to getting dinged for 4 by FC Dallas and prior to Vancouver taking it to Inter Miami on Wednesday night, Inter Miami had only 6 goals conceded. That was tied for first in the entire league with, well, the supporter shield leaders right now, Vancouver. They were tied for the best goal differential in MLS. So the defense largely has been fine, but it's been a lot of bend, not break. It's been a lot of individuals like Noah Allen or Maxi Falcone who will come to the rescue, Yannick Bright. Let's not forget, twice this season, early MLS, Inter Miami went down to 10 men in the first half and were able to pull out results, both one a draw against NYCFC and the other a 1-0 victory over Charlotte, who's suddenly turning it on here over the last month and a half. But now it's a little bit more nuanced than the defense is starting to fracture. Javier Mascherano took responsibility for his substitutions, keeping in mind he had a second leg of the semifinal coming up against FC Dallas. He took responsibility. I didn't make the right substitutions. I was trying to see it through by holding possession as opposed to parking the bus per se, which had worked well for Inter Miami throughout the entire MLS schedule to that point. Went a little bit change of tactic, and it did not go well. And then Inter Miami having to be very aggressive in Vancouver, the best scoring team in MLS. That was a recipe for disaster on Wednesday night, the way things played out. So the defense has been fine. But yeah, now that number gets inflated and suddenly you start to wonder, well, maybe there is an issue there that was masked by these teams not quite being in full form in the first 2 months of the season. So we're going to have to see Saturday. Saturday is a huge, huge, huge test for this Inter Miami side to try and fortify that defense, because not only do you have the mental component, but also you've been beat up a little bit back there the last couple of matches.
So finish with this one, Ken, and again, appreciate your time coming on here. Finish with this one. Going into Saturday, clearly there is a lot of pride on the Miami side with the players that they have. Now, as you and I talk on Thursday when we're recording right now, you might know, I don't know, who gets rest, who's beat up, who's tired. I mean, there's a whole lineup component that nobody's quite sure about. But you would think this is a Miami team. If it's in their DNA, they come out on Saturday pretty angry.
Yeah, I obviously Javier Mascherano and Inter Miami keep this very close to the vest, but there have been several matches this year where I thought for sure Lionel Messi was either A, going to come off the bench, or B, not be available. And then suddenly he's playing for a full 90. I think that Inter Miami right now, knowing that the FIFA Club World Cup is on the horizon now after falling short in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, I get the sense that there is a need for the psyche of this club to have some positives start to happen once again, to find some form in the attack. They can't just ride this out and say, oh, we're going to show up in June and we'll be fine. I think they're trying to work some things out. I think they want to get some younger legs in the 11. So my gut tells me Lionel Messi not only is available, but probably starts in this match. I think Luis Suarez, he needs to see a ball go into the net at some point. I would get the sense that he probably starts. I wouldn't be surprised if all the Fantastic Four get the start, all that Fab Four for Inter Miami. And then the back, we'll have to see. But I do know Ian Frey, a youngster back there who has seen meaningful time at right back. He's been in and out of the 11. I think you start, if you're Javier Mascherano, I wonder if you start seeing what you can incorporate with some of the lesser used, because now is the time to tinker a little bit, because you're going to be back on an international stage in just a couple of weeks.
Ken, appreciate you hopping on here. Look forward to seeing you in person over the course of the weekend. Red Bull Miami, always fun. And in South Florida. The atmosphere will be there.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Matt. Can't wait to see you, my man.